Hey everybody, I'm Sigfried Trent, game designer, co-creator of Everyday Heroes, and world-weary champion of SigTrent Games. Today I'm going to be updating you on what's going on with SigTrent Games, offer a bit of game design advice, and talk a little bit about my life. So let's get started with week 15 of SigTrent Games, and we're going to start that off with talk about Shotgun Fantasy. And the big news with Shotgun Fantasy this week is I got an artist. So I went from, man, I really need to get around to sending something to artists and trying to get that going to, bam, I have an artist, paid for the artist, contracted the artist. The artist has given me work. So real fast action this week, which I'm really excited about. And that all happened starting out on Monday. I actually saw a post from my friend Owen Casey Stevens, who was sharing a post from an artist who said they were looking for some work. And I looked at their work, and it was really quite a good match for what I want to do with Shotgun Fantasy. And they're relatively new artists. I mean, they've been working in the industry, but didn't seem to be super well established, which is good because I can't pay the very top rates. But they had time right now, and they looked really promising. So I reached out to Frank Fryer. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce their last name, since we've talked by email rather than in person. But anyway, Frank was really interested in the project, and I sent the art order that I have for the cover, and Frank was like, yeah, that sounds really exciting. I want to work on that. So I was like, great, let's get a contract signed. I got this contract that I worked up, and I put it on e-sign, I believe, and we got that done. And then I sent Frank payment, and Frank got to work, and I've already got 3 options for what to do with my cover, and I looked over those, talked with Anne, and we picked option B. I don't really want to show those just yet. They're very early sketches, just kind of showing the layout and the framing and the figures and stuff for the art. But when I have something that's pretty cool, and Frank's good with me sharing with everybody, we'll share some of that work in progress so you can see what's going on. But I think we'll have a cover pretty soon. I don't know exactly when. I gave pretty broad, generous timelines for it, but I think Frank's got time right now, so they're working hard on it already. So that's awesome. Frank's also going to do 4 character images for us, and that'll be for the 4 classes that are going to feature in Shotgun Fantasy. I always like to have really nice illustration for the class character iconics, and just like with other Everyday Hero books I've done, I'll be creating kind of iconic characters to go with those illustrations. So I'm looking forward to that as well. We're going to be working on those art orders this week. And then when the cover's done, we'll get those rocking and rolling. So I'm really happy because having a nice cover means I can really start to advertise Shotgun Fantasy. People can conceptualize what it is just by looking at the image and knowing whether they'd be interested or not. And I think it'll pull in a lot of interest and people be curious about it. And that's going to help with sales, and that's going to, in turn, help pay for the art. So, of course, I used all the funds we raised from our character sheets, the hero sheets, in order to funnel into getting the art, but it costs a little bit more than that, in fact. So I dipped into my personal funds a little bit, but the idea is sales of the product. Hopefully we'll pay those things back and cover the cost of production. That's always what you're hoping for at any rate. But I think having art always goes a long way towards paying for itself, especially if it's really good art that you can use to promote the product. So that's the aim here, and I want to make sure that we pay Frank nice fair wage, and I've already given him half up front, because I think that's kind of the fair way to do it, and we'll get the other half on the backside. And my contract leaves ownership of the art with the artist, so they'll be able to use that art for their own promotion or sell it to other people in the future. But I get exclusive rights to use it for game publishing for a little while, and perpetual rights to use it for advertising and game publishing as needed throughout history. So I get a nice long-term contract to use that art, which is very important because the more art we build up in our catalog, the more I can use it in new products and just get more mileage out of it. So that's really important for the kind of the economy of contracting art. Anyway, so that's going on. I'm really happy, not just because I'm going to get some great art, but it's the first time I used my contract, and Frank didn't seem to have any issue with it, which made me happy, and it all went very quick and an easy process. So hooray for modern payment systems like PayPal and stuff. Just makes it really easy to get contracts done, even when you're contracting with people in another country. So yay for technology. Anyway, so that's the big, super exciting stuff going on with Shotgun Fantasy, at least for me. I've also been working on the text, although I got a little bit less done for reasons we'll get into later. But I was pretty in-depth on what I was working on. It was a little bit slow going, and There's a few different things. So I'm really working heavily on schools of magic. Last time I talked about how I had to go back up to the classes because I was like, what spells am I going to do? And well, I need spells that are going to support the classes that I'm going to have. So what are the classes going to have? So I kind of got that out of the way. Now I'm back down into the spells going, okay, what do I need in order to have good support for the classes? One thing I need is what's called an essentials school of magic. So a lot of the spell access is going to be granted through schools or spheres of magic, probably mostly in Shotgun Fantasy through the schools themselves. So I need to define what those schools are and then define what spells are going to be in those schools. And for the archetype for magic, which in theory, if you're multiclassing, you will get before you get an actual class, needs access to some kind of spells and the ability to cast them. So I came up with the idea of a school of essentials for magic. And these are spells that may indeed fit into other schools as well, but they are the kinds of spells that apprentices or new magic users would learn in order to practice their arts. That means that they all need to be effectively cantrips, or in our system, zero rank spells. We're calling them cantrips, but in my system, cantrip doesn't really have a special definition. It's merely a rank 0 spell, and you can cast rank 0 spells without needing to spend any mana points, which means you can cast them essentially as much as you like. But otherwise, they function just like other spells do. So every spell in the Essential School needs to be cantrip, so it has to have a rank 0 version. That, however, can have higher rank versions of that spell. So, for instance, one of them is light. You can cast light as a cantrip, and you get a temporary, nice light source about equivalent to a torch. However, if you crank it up, you can get brighter light sources. You can try to blind people with a flash of light. You can get permanent light sources, things like that. So you can take the light spell as an apprentice that you learn, and as you become a more powerful wizard or cleric or whatever kind of spellcaster you are, you can access more powerful versions of that very basic spell that you learned when you were just starting out. So that's the idea of the Essential School. Ideally, I want to take all of the classic schools from the D&D spell schools and have at least one essential spell that fits that. I think that's just kind of nice parity. It gives me a nice number of essential school spells to work with. I may be adding some other schools. I'm not 100% decided on that, or changing a little bit the name of some of the schools that we have to make them more immediately understandable to new players. Abjuration is not a very common word. It's really their protection spells, so maybe I'll go with the protection school instead of the abjuration school. And then the conversion guide, it'll say, hey, if you're playing D&D, abjuration means protection, etc. I'm not 100% decided on that, but it's the kind of thing I'm wrestling with and going back and forth. Fortunately, modern Word documents or Google Docs, as I use, has find and replace. So it's not too hard to make a change like that. That's a semantic and verbal change. So that's the Essential School, and I think I've got 2 more spells I need to get in there, and I may be taking existing spells and adding a cantrip version of them, or just coming up with something entirely new. We shall see. Other things that are involved in that is religion versus colleges versus schools. So schools of magic is just a term that we're used to using in fantasy, especially in D&D. So I don't really want to mess with that, and it sounds good in the language most of the time. However, saying that a wizard went to the school of enchantment isn't quite right for me. I would much rather a wizard goes to the college of enchantment, because it just sounds more prestigious and it's the kind of a thing a wizard would like. As where a school is a broad category of magic, it's like a tradition, but a specific college is a place you went to and an organization and a fraternity that you're part of. So I think it will probably have both colleges of magic, which often have the same name as a school, and schools of magic, which are really about the spells and how they're organized. We'll see. They are going to be somewhat synonymous. So, the College of Enchanting is probably using the enchantment school, right? So, I don't know. I haven't completely decided again on that. It could be I'll drop the use of the word colleges and just stick to schools. But I don't know. I just sort of like it better that way. And then in theory, you could mix and match a little bit, although certainly for Shotgun Fantasy, it's going to be this college uses this school of magic. and that's that. Maybe the colleges will have slightly different names than the schools. I'm not sure. And then, we might say, okay, well, an apprentice of this college is generally referred to as X kind of a title. Those little flavor details, they don't take up much space in a book, but they add a lot of context to the world and kind of make things interesting. So I might do some of that. And I really want to model for homebrew kind of the way to put together a college and some cool details that you can add really quickly that are going to flesh out the idea, that sort of thing. So we'll see. Same with religions, in a sense. Obviously, a religion is very different from a wizard's college, but functionally in the game, there's a lot of similarities in that it is going to give the cleric class different types of specializations and talents that are unique to their religion / college, and it's going to give access to a set of spells that are appropriate for that religion or idea. I'm also not 100% sure if the religions are going to have specific gods or pantheons that they're about or not, or whether I'm going to be vague about it's the religion of life, etc., and let people craft with that. I think I'm leaning towards putting in some specific lore for my Aeron world, but having the deities that I choose be rather broad and generic ones that could easily be substituted for another life god or thunder god or whatever it happens to be, without any great difficulty or change of mechanics, right? So just have a little modularity between those ideas and to pick generic enough ones that it's going to be pretty easy to do a substitution. I'm always tempted to do something cool and unusual, but I have to resist some of those urges for this book because it needs to be very general, because it's just covering a core basic set of fantasy tropes, not going into cool little details and totally original ideas. I'll save that for further supplements or further books, I think. As cool as that stuff is, I don't know. I'm always tempted. It's hard to resist, but I'm trying. But at any rate, I do also need a way to distinguish between a religion and a college mechanically, so that they don't just feel like carbon copies of each other. They are necessarily going to be very similar because they are providing a very similar functionality in the game, which is specialization within a class, and a specialized spell list for a type of spellcaster. But they do need to feel like they're their own thing. So we'll see exactly how I put that together. May take a page straight from D&D and have divine channeling as part of the cleric, and something else part of the wizard. Part of the wizard's shtick, their special thing is really that they can learn any kind of spell. If they can find a spell written in the wizardly language in a spell book or on a scroll, they can learn that spell. Doesn't matter what college they're from. The whole idea behind the Order of Wizards is that they have a universal rules and descriptions of magic, and they can share that with each other. So the thing about being a wizard is you have kind of infinite spell variety. You're not going to automatically get access to that infinity of spells. You're going to have to go out and find the ones that are not part of your college. As where your college, you can go to the college library whenever you level up and go learn some new spells there. And so you're going to get automatic access within your own specialized spell school. But their shtick is versatility in the end and being kind of infinite magic in that sense. So a little bit about some of the things with the classes and all that. Whatever I'm working on, I'll be talking about it here in some detail. Another little interesting bit I thought was I was revisiting the idea of counterspells. Counterspell is one of those things that's kind of come and gone from Dungeons and Dragons. It has mechanical play problems in that it's pretty boring to counterspell something. You're not doing anything terribly creative. However, it feels right in the sense of a magical world, and it is nice to be able to have a defense against spellcasters and magic, since it can be so powerful. So I really wanted to kind of come up with a way that I could do counterspelling. Also, I wanted it to be in the Essentials School because it's a very basic kind of thing you might learn as a wizard. But I also want it to be generic enough and balanced enough so that you're really only going to use it when you're totally afraid that the other wizard is more powerful than you or is going to be able to do something that you won't be able to get around. And so if you're counterspelling, you really kind of have to commit to it, and there's a risk that basically you have to set it up as a readied action so that I'm going to counterspell that guy, whatever they do, and if they don't cast a spell, you're kind of out of luck. So you're putting a lot on the line in order to choose to go with counterspell, but it is available for you as a tool, and sort of high risk, high reward. as versus some versions of it were just as a reaction, and so it essentially let you cast 2 spells a turn because you cast a spell and you could counter somebody else's spell. You did burn through spell points, but that could be really powerful to fight. But then if everybody adopts that tactic, nobody's going to be casting spells. So I think adding a strategic risk element to it is going to be an important way to kind of keep it from being broken in play. But it's definitely something we'll be playtesting and see how it actually feels to use it, and whether or not players who have that option choose ever to use that option or not. I'd be okay if it is an option that is only rarely chosen. That actually would be ideal. Something that is used, but it's only used occasionally, as opposed to something that you want to go to all the time. If that's the case, then it's probably still a little too good and I need to work on it. So anyway, I'm going to give it a shot. We'll see how it goes. If it proves to be either useless or broken, then it's not going to make the final cut. But that's what playtesting is all about. All right, next up, of course, then I need to come up with a new abjuration cantrip for the Essential School, but we'll see. All right, Debatable Actions. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. That's a supplement I did with Lewis Porter Jr. Games, and it came up this week because playing my weekly D&D mixed with Everyday Heroes, aka Shotgun Fantasy playtest game, it came up. The Game Master decided to use the Debatable Actions system to do a meeting where we were being debated over by the Thieves Guild as to whether to turn us over to the authorities or not. And so we got to use the Debatable Action system to try and plead for them not to do that and to side with us pesky rebels instead of with the king. And I thought it worked out pretty well. Everyone had pretty good fun. There were some fun arguments made. The system does encourage people to come up with actual things to say, but it doesn't require it. So it's kind of nice, and it's not real big on the verbatim role-playing. But even she came up with some pretty fun arguments that made the scene pretty cool. I really enjoyed the way people were taken out of the debate. So when we defeated a member of the Thieves Guild, took away all their debate points through our vicious attacks, they would give up in frustration and storm out of the room, kind of like, I don't care what happens. I just don't want to talk to these jerks anymore. And so we slowly whittled down the council until they gave up, and they're like, all right, we're not going to turn you over. This is not going to happen. So that was pretty cool. And so it felt right. And just generally, I thought it played out well. So I was very pleased with that. If you're interested in Debatable Actions, you can get it on Drive-Thru RPG from Lewis Porter Jr. Games, and I got a cut of the action on that, so that's cool. One thing we did discover, we were playing remotely. It's not an ideal system for remote play, just because there are these debate cards that have the arguments on them that you pick from at the beginning, and it really helps to have some physical cards because you can pick from them, and then you just have them in your hand, and it's very easy to reference them and decide what you're going to do each round of the debate. However, one fellow was playing on his phone, and he managed to figure out just fine. He took screenshots of the cards from the PDF and then just flipped back and forth through those. So that works pretty good. So there's definitely ways to do it remote. But for the game master, who's going to have a larger set of arguments to pull from for his NPCs, it can be a little hard to manage with just electronics, as where the physical cards are pretty easy to deal with during play. So it's maybe a system that works best when you're actually sitting at a table and is a little bit challenging without digital tools. But I don't know. I talked with Anne a little bit about whether she wants to make digital tools for it in the future someday. Maybe is the answer. So we'll see. All right, so that's it for what's going on with SigTrent Games this week. Let's move on to my game design tip of the week. And this one isn't so much about designing games directly, but the art of game design. And I think it's a pretty important subject. So that subject is how to take criticism. I think this is something that is really worth discussing and worth thinking about if you're going to be a game designer and you're going to publish your games to other people. If you're game designing and it's just for you or just your play group, I don't think that's really a problem. Your players aren't going to give you too much criticism, I hope. Sometimes they will, but usually not. And so this is more public criticism when you're putting your work out there for the public to consume, and they will inevitably comment on it. We'll get to that later, but hopefully they will comment on it. If nobody comments or critiques your work, that's actually kind of a bad sign. All right, so let's get into it. The first thing I want you to consider is, are you emotionally equipped to handle criticism? Because not everybody is. Some people who are very creative are quite sensitive and When faced with criticism, they internalize it very strongly, even if they go with the intent not to. And it can trigger feelings of self doubt and depression and make you give up on your work and other bad things. It is not worth it. If criticism makes you feel that way, I would advise you to largely avoid the criticism. Don't go out there and fight against it. Don't engage. Just stay away from it. Don't read the comments. Put out your work. Have confidence in it. Maybe just get some trusted friends who you know and you respect and you feel will not hurt you to comment and give criticism to you in a very safe environment. It's a good way to go. Now, I won't say you're probably missing out a little bit. Facing criticism and exposing yourself to it can help you very much grow as a game designer and can help you make your work better. But it is not worth the cost if it drives you to an emotional state where it is harder to do your work, right? That becomes self-defeating. So knowing how it is and observing yourself when dealing with criticism, having that self-awareness is very important to deciding whether it's going to be good for you or not good for you. Now, the rest of this is assuming that you can handle some criticism and that it's not going to put you on tilt. So let's go forward with that in mind. So a few thoughts to keep in mind when dealing with criticism up front before you even get into the details. 1, criticism is helpful to you. The reason you want to engage with it is because it will make you a better game designer and it will make the work that you do better in the long run at meeting the needs of your audience. So it will be useful to you to face criticism. 2, being perfect is impossible. You cannot be the perfect game designer. There is no such thing as the perfect game designer. There is no best game designer. Everyone is designing games that will appeal to some fans and not appeal to other fans. And everybody is making personal choices, and it's a matter of taste. There are objective qualities to game design, absolutely, just like clean writing, good spelling, clear organization, and some other things like that. But even within that space, there is wiggle room. How many spelling errors can somebody accept before it feels unprofessional? What level of, maybe a game is fun because it's organized in a slightly chaotic fashion. That can give you a feel that you want in your game, even if it can be a little confusing to get through the rule book. So even with those things that we might consider objective, there are cases to be made for the sake of art and experience where you might be able to violate some of those rules. You might have a weird slang in your game that intentionally spells things incorrectly, right? So there's all kinds of possibilities, but perfection is impossible. So when you take criticism, that is not necessarily a sign of your failure. It is only an opportunity that you might be able to improve further, because we can always get better. The next one, I kind of already addressed it, but you cannot please everyone. It is impossible, so don't try. Know who you are trying to target as an audience and try to please them. Now, if the audience that you are trying to target does not like your game, that's definitely a problem you need to address. If the people you never designed your game to please don't like your game, that's just natural, and that's okay. You still want to be able to respond to them in criticism. There are reasons to do it, but don't take it personally and don't take it as you did something wrong, because even if you did everything right, some people won't like it. That's just how it is. All right. Finally, it's about what the critic, wants, not who you are or what you gave, right? So listening to people's feedback and criticism is about understanding that person's needs, and how those needs can or can't be met. It is not about you, whether you did a good job or a bad job necessarily. Now we'll kind of get into that, but that's like the last step in a way. The first step is it is about understanding that particular customer or potential customer, what they like and what they don't like. Okay, so that's enough said about that. These are things you need to keep in mind at all times, and they're going to help you feel more relaxed and more in control and not put you on tilt, and help you deal with criticism rationally, which is very important, instead of emotionally. Okay. Now, one more caveat before we get into kind of the steps of how to actually take criticism are recognizing the difference between criticism and abuse. So I got a couple watchwords here. Criticism is about the work, as where abuse is about the creator. So if someone says, the devs on this game are lazy idiots, right? That's not a critique. That is abuse. It's just mean spirited and it's nasty, and you won't benefit or learn anything from it. Now, the person who said it still might have some value to learn from, but you're going to need to get them to shift from calling you lazy to detailing what it is about the game that made them think that you were lazy. Maybe it was the editing, maybe it's the style of writing, maybe it's you left something out that they really wanted in the game. You're gonna have to dig down and figure out what that is if you want to engage with that person. But you don't have to. If someone's just abusive to you, you can safely ignore them. It's going to be hard work to try and get something useful from them. So I would say just don't do it. Don't engage with the trolls. Leave them be and ignore them. Because what they have to say is not really of any value. You know how lazy or not lazy you are and how smart or not smart you are, and they don't. Now, do I ever engage with these people? I do a little bit engage with abuse. Mostly what I do is admonish them for not engaging with the material and being unkind, right? I say, hey, it's not a very nice thing to say. I know the people that worked on this game, they worked really hard on the game. I know I worked hard on the game. I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it. That's okay, but please be kind, right? So that's what I take on those things. And I don't really want to have a long conversation with that person. I am more saying that for the sake of others. The audience who is not engaged in the conversation to see that I am both a gracious person who wants to listen to the fans, but also a person who sticks up for themselves, and to sort of say, hey, look, this person's opinion is just abuse and you should probably ignore it and seek a review of the game from someone who's going to be fair. Right. So that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm not really speaking to that person in a way. I'm speaking to the outside audience. We'll get a little bit more into that later as we go. But another thing is criticism can be addressed, but abuse can only be admonished. You can't really address someone calling you lazy or calling you stupid. Like, how are you going to prove that you're not? All you can do is attest that you are not and leave it at that. It becomes a he said, she said kind of thing, and I just wouldn't get into it. However, criticism you can address. So if somebody says, well, I think the editing is poor because I found this one spelling mistake, and you can point out, well, it's very rare for a book that's 200,000 words to not have any spelling mistakes in it. Even though our editors try really hard, they are going to miss things occasionally. But you know what? We'll fix that in the next edition. Thank you for pointing it out. So now we'll talk. That's how to take criticism in a nutshell. But so yeah, you need, if you're going to respond to something, make sure it's something that you can respond to in a useful way. Otherwise, maybe don't bother. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty about how to take criticism. I got 6 steps here that you can take a look at, and we'll discuss each one. So the first one is to say thank you. And that may seem pretty strange to thank people for their criticism, but because you can learn from criticism, they are doing you a favor. They may point out an error in your book that you didn't know about. They may be giving you an insight into your audience you don't know about. They are talking about your game publicly, which is going to draw attention to it and maybe get somebody to check it out. They are doing you a favor by bringing up criticism. Again, that's not true if it's abuse. That's not a favor at all. That's being a jerk. But if it's legitimate criticism that they're offering you, they are doing you a favor as a game designer. So see them as a potential ally and a potential fan, and not as an opponent that you need to counter. Okay, there is some truth that if they are being very critical, you need to present something that shows that your game isn't maybe as bad as they're making it sound, but we'll talk about that. So, but first, say thanks. Hey, thanks for leaving a comment. I'm so glad you're interested in the game. Thanks. Yeah, this is a really interesting part of the game to talk about. Let me tell you about it. That sort of thing. But start on a friendly tone. That's also going to make the rest of the conversation go a lot better. If someone feels like their view and opinion is appreciated and enjoyed and useful, then they're going to want to engage with you, and they're naturally going to want to move towards your side and soften their own criticism. I've done this many, many times, and it really works great to just start out on the right foot and say, we are allies, we are cooperating, your criticism has validity, let's engage and talk about it. Okay, so that's step number 1, say thanks. Step number 2, acknowledge the critique. This means you need to, sometimes there's different ways to do it. You can repeat back to the person making the critique what their critique is in your own words as you understand it, and this helps them either correct you, no, that's not what I meant, because sometimes you're not going to understand exactly what they mean or why they're saying what they're saying. But it says that you're listening, right? You're obviously paid attention to what they said, and you're responding to the content of it and the substance of it, not just dismissing them as an adversary, right? So acknowledging the critique's really important. Stick on the subject of the critique. Don't switch off to another subject or yes, but, or any of that kind of thing, or attack them back or any of that. So just focus on what the critique is and acknowledge it. Step number 3, try to understand the critique. So if you don't really get where they're coming from, or you don't get why they have this issue, try to ask them some follow-up questions. Say, hey, look, I want to better understand where you're coming from. Sometimes that's like, well, what would you like me to do differently? They're like, I don't like this. And then like, well, what do you like? Can you tell me so I understand better? Or, I didn't understand this thing on page 17. And you could say, well, what didn't you understand? Was it everything or just some particular point about it? So try to understand what it is that they are saying from their perspective, not from your perspective, but from their perspective, so that you can better respond to it. Okay. Next up is offer help. You want to be seen as helpful. As game designers, our job is to provide products that make it fun to play games. So I'm here to serve you, the customer, or the potential customer. Again, does not count for people who want to abuse you. Do not play into their game. Do not give them anything, right? But if they have a challenge with your game, especially if this is a person who's played the game and likes the game but has run into a problem during the game, you want to appear to be there to try and help them resolve that problem if you can. There are different ways to do that. You can promise to fix something in a future edition of the game if it really was a broken problem. You can try to think of their idea and provide something in an upcoming supplement that's going to help them. Like, I got a lot of complaints about Everyday Heroes that it only went to level 10. That was a very intentional choice as designers, but there wasn't any reason I couldn't provide a system to go past level 10 to people. So I did that in the vault, and I did it for those critics, right? I said, okay, this is something you really want as a fan. I want to make you happy. You like other parts of the game, so it's not like you hate my game, in which case there'd be no point, right? But you like it. You just want this one feature. And while I don't think it should be a part of the core game for everybody, for them, you can make an add-on and an expansion that's going to make them happy. So that's great. So offering help, very useful when possible. Sometimes you can't offer help. People just want to get something off their chest, or it's a fundamental part of your game. They're like, I don't like dice rolls. So, well, I can't really help you with that. I totally get it, right? There are diceless games that are very cool. This isn't one of them. Sorry, I can't help you. And you can apologize. You can say, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about this. Same goes, I had somebody who's like, take the pronouns off your character sheets. I'm like, no, we're leaving them on there because people like those. There are people who use that. Use the one that you think is appropriate. I'm not telling you what to do with it. But I ain't taking it off because it's value to other customers. And so I'm sorry, but that's not happening. But I'm still not telling them I hate the way they think. I might not like it, but it's not my place as a game designer to do that. I'm trying to provide a service for other people. All right, step 5, show consideration. And this is show that you have listened, you have thought about it, and you've made a reasoned decision to do or not do something. You don't always have to do this step, but the further you get down on the list, the less essential they are. But I do like to do that, and often I will say, hey, I will consider putting that in a future update. I will consider changing that rule in the future if we do an errata. I don't promise, because I may change my mind, or that person there may be 10 other people that think differently. And so on balance, it's best not to do that. But I'm at least going to show consideration that I am going to think about their idea, and I am going to weigh it against other ideas and make a decision as a game designer. So last, step 6 is to explain decisions and goals. I love doing this. It is kind of an optional step. You do not have to explain yourself as a game designer, but because I like to teach and I like to help other people become good game designers, aka this part of these videos, I do like to explain myself in perhaps torturous detail as to exactly why I make game decisions. This can also be a very good counter to when people call you lazy, or you're just phoning it in or copy pasting. If you write a 3-page essay as to why you decided to make hit points work the way they did, then nobody can call you lazy or unconsidered. They have to back down and go, okay, well, I don't agree, but at that point. And I always make very informed decisions when I'm designing games. Not everybody has to, not everybody does, but I do. And so I love to explain why I did things. And other fans who are not the person critiquing may get a lot of benefit out of that. They may see the logic and the reasoning in your game design decision and decide to check out your game. So responding to critique can be a good way to advertise things. And in giving an explanation, you can include other cool details about your game, stuff that you want to promote about it. You know, in Everyday Heroes, we like a really modular system. So you don't have to play with that rule. You could use this other rule instead. And then people go, oh, well, that's pretty cool that the game is flexible like that, and they go check it out. So this is your chance to kind of do a little salesmanship, and maybe sometimes to help somebody understand the way the game was meant to be played. They're trying to do it kind of not the way that was intended, and they're getting friction as a result. So that can work too. You just don't want to tell people that they're wrong or they're bad or the way they like to play is the bad way to play. Don't do that. Just couch it as, when I wrote the game, this was my intention and this is how I envisioned it working. I didn't consider that someone might want to play that other way, or that's just not the direction I was leaning the game in, et cetera, et cetera. So try not to unconsider or invalidate the critic, but do try to support your own position and describe what it is that you were trying to do and why you were trying to do it. So there you go. That's my advice on how to do criticism. My little points to remember are: people only critique things they see value in. So the fact that someone is critiquing your game in many ways means they are either interested in the ideas behind the game, like the concept of the game, or they enjoy the game, but they have a pain point. If no one talks about your game, that's kind of a bad thing. It means no one's really that interested in it. No one cares enough to critique it. And so that's kind of bad. You bolster your reputation by responding to criticism. So it's definitely helpful to get out there. Your reputation as a game designer in the public sphere is pretty important. It's not something everyone wants to be involved in. And again, if you're not a person who likes public attention, it's better not to get it than to get it and be miserable. But if you can handle it, it's definitely good for you overall. You can win new fans. I have, on a number of occasions, faced criticism from someone who was very harsh. I treated them kindly. I explained my ideas and had them come around and actually become ardent fans of my game because they felt cared for. They had an initial interest right there. You know, that's why they were critiquing it, and I won them over. And that's a wonderful thing, right? You get new fans, and often they can be some of your strongest fans. So don't shy away from it for that reason. You can grow and improve as a game designer. Remember that. You always want to be getting better. Even if it's a slow process, whatever the case is, you will grow as you work and do your thing. But this is a way to fertilize your growth, let's say. Get new opinions, get new considerations, and get new ideas. Sometimes people will give you a criticism and you're like, yeah, that's actually brilliant. I'm totally going to steal that, right? So go for it. Finally, you're going to learn about your audience. All of us as game designers, we don't have marketing written on us. If you're a small game designer with your own company like me, you got to do your marketing and everything else. Even if you're just a game designer working on contract for another company, you want to be thinking about making your game marketable, pleasing the audience that the game is targeted for. If you get a job on a game to write a piece, ask the producer, editor, whoever you're talking to, ask what their audience is. Who are you writing this game for? A, they're going to be impressed that you thought about that. B, your work will be better received and get less critiques. So critique is a good way to learn about your audience and what they want, what they don't want. There we go. So that was pretty long probably, but I think being able to take criticism is a pretty important skill topic for game designers. All right, let's move on. What have I been playing this week? This one's going to be pretty short. I didn't do a lot of gaming. I played Stellaris some, still playing around. I got the new system figured out for the most part, I think. I keep building peaceful empires, I guess, because it's kind of fun and interesting to go, okay, well, these guys are merchants and they're going to spread throughout the galaxy and do this. Or, hey, these guys are super scientists and they don't care about war or political intrigue. They just want to have an enclave and maximize science. But when I play the game, I actually really like fighting. I like building giant fleets and getting in the tension of battle and the risk and the reward and the excitement of that. And I think that's what motivates me most when playing. So I build these peaceful empires because I think they're going to be really cool, and the storytelling is interesting. But then they get a point in the game where all the borders are established, and I kind of don't want to go to war because my species is not supposed to be about war. But then all I get to do is optimize and tinker with the little fiddly bits of my economy. It's not the most exciting thing. So then it becomes like a game I play in the background while I work on something else. So I've been playing Stellaris in the background a lot this week as I watch my peaceful empires unfold like little flowers. Life in general. Fair bit more going on this week. I got extra shifts in the gift store this week. They had somebody kind of call in sick and have other things they needed to do. So they're like, Sig, can you help us? And I love to help people, so I did that, and I took on those extra shifts. So I got less time writing for Shotgun Fantasy than I wanted to. Thankfully, we got the new art, and I'm really excited about that. So that means everything is still moving forward, but I wish I got more writing done. We'll see if we can make up for it this week, but we're getting into the summer season. Taking extra shifts at the gift shop is the thing that will happen. It helps pay for the artwork, so that's good, but it does take away time from development, which is not so good. And this is another reason why, as a one-man show, I cannot promise release dates until I've already finished the product. And then I can say, well, I'll get the marketing done and the store set up this week. I know that for sure. So that can be kind of tough to give people dates. People always want to know when things are coming out. But let me tell you, as a game designer and a developer and a publisher, it's hard until you've got a real worked system that you've done many times. So, but I'll keep trying. I'm tired, but excited. It was a very tiring week. Extra shifts at the gift shop mean I come home exhausted and spent, and I need to rest and then get back to work. But I'm very excited for everything that's going on, so my mood is very high and I'm feeling good. A pizza bit my arm. So I was making a little Totino's pizza, which I occasionally buy myself at the grocery store as a treat. Anne is a fabulous cook, so mostly I eat home-cooked meals, but for whatever reason, those like little flat pizzas on the kind of weird pastry thing that they put them on, I love those things, little party time pizzas. So I don't know. I was cooking one in the toaster oven. The toaster oven door, while I was taking my pizza out, popped up and burned my arm. So I got this kind of nasty burn on my arm I've been tending to. So it goes. It's hard to see friends. A little bit of a down note, but because I work at a gift shop, the busiest days are weekends and holidays. So I cannot take Memorial Day off and go to the gaming party. I cannot take 4th of July off and go to the 4th of July celebration. It sucks. I really love my friends. I don't get to see them a lot because I live out of town. So I do go into town over the weekends, but now I can't go into town over the weekends because I'm needed at the gift shop, and that pays the bills. Such is life. But hopefully my life as a gift store clerk will be a limited period for a year or two while I get things stabilized with SigTrent Games. And then I can be free to write games almost all the time. And then whenever I want to, or whenever my friends are ready, I can go spend time with them. So my apology to all my good friends out there. I will return to my normal social habits once this period of life passes by. All right, so that's it this week. I hope you guys have a wonderful summer and a wonderful 4th of July, a wonderful Memorial Day, and take care and have fun gaming out there. Catch you later.